During World War II, Yugoslavia was occupied by the Nazis. After the war, under the leadership of Tito, Yugoslavia underwent a profound system change and continued as the Socialist Federative Republic of Yugoslavia. Within the Yugoslavian umbrella, there were 6 different republics: Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, Slovenia, Montenegro, and Macedonia. Although each republic had the right to preserve its cultural development and use its language, they didn't have the right to govern themselves independently within the Yugoslavian state. Kosovo, however, was an exception, as it had autonomous status connected to Serbia. The Albanians in Kosovo, who didn't have as many rights as the other republics within Yugoslavia, demanded to be granted republic status but were repeatedly denied. In the 1960s, Albanians in Kosovo protested and called for republic status and the same rights as the Serbs. Under increasing pressure from Kosovars, Tito abandoned his policy of violence and instead adopted a policy of compromise. As a result, in January 1969, Kosovo was granted the authority to establish its independent courts, equal status for Albanian and Turkish languages, and an independent institution for the University of Pristina, which had previously been under the control of the Serbian Belgrade University. However, Serbs were increasingly unhappy with the rights granted to the Albanians. As the tension between the two groups grew, fights and even conflicts erupted, causing Serbian Kosovars to leave and Albanians from Macedonia, Montenegro, Eastern Serbia, and the Sanjak region to settle in their places. However, Kosovo remained one of the poorest regions in Yugoslavia, with high unemployment rates. While per capita income in Slovenia was twice the Yugoslavian average, per capita income in Kosovo was only 20% of the average. After Tito's death on May 4, 1980, the economic crisis worsened, further deteriorating the political situation in Kosovo. The first reaction to this situation came from the students of the University of Pristina, and the protests that began in April 1981 spread throughout Kosovo, turning into mass demonstrations. This led to a state of emergency being declared in Serbia, with police and military force clashing with protesters. However, after the protest was crushed in 1982, many people lost their lives and approximately 508,000 Kosovars were arrested, interrogated, or detained. Due to this internal unrest, Serbs continued to leave Kosovo and move to Serbia. The rising tension between the Serbs and Albanians in Kosovo worked in favor of Slobodan Milošević, a Serbian nationalist, who was elected as the 15th president of Socialist Republic of Serbia in 1989. Milošević, who frequently asserted that Kosovo belonged to Serbia, began to work towards re-Serbanizing Kosovo. His first move was to revoke Kosovo's autonomous status. Furthermore, he closed the Kosovo Communist Party, imposed a political ban on Albanians, and banned the use of the Albanian language in official institutions. More than 3,000 police officers were dismissed due to their Albanian heritage, and tens of thousands of Albanians were fired from their jobs in factories, cooperatives, and other state-controlled enterprises, to be replaced by the Serbs. In response to these unfair practices, the Kosovo Democratic Union was formed without the permission of Yugoslavia in 1989, and efforts were made towards Kosovo's independence. In early 1990, tens of thousands of Albanians in Kosovo gathered to protest across all cities. These protests initially started peacefully, but escalated into a full-fledged uprisings with acts of violence. In response, more than 2,000 Yugoslavian police and soldiers entered Kosovo with tanks. Warplanes flew over Kosovo at low altitudes to intimidate the demonstrators. Over 20 people lost their lives during these events, and a curfew was imposed by the Yugoslavian army in Kosovo. When the year 1991 arrived, the process of dissolution began in Yugoslavia, and on June 25th, Croatia and Slovenia declared their independence from Yugoslavia. That same year, as Macedonia and Kosovo headed towards independence referendums, Kosovo declared independence with an overwhelming majority of approximately 99%. As a result, the Kosovo Democratic Union, led by President Ibrahim Rugova, declared independence and called for recognition of their independence from Yugoslavia and the European Community. However, this declaration of independence was not recognized by any state other than Albania. Meanwhile, Serbia and Montenegro united to form the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia in 1992. The new Yugoslav government was preoccupied with the Bosnian War and was unable to deal with the Kosovo issue. Therefore, the Kosovo government, which was conducting its independence struggle peacefully, believed that it could win the support of Europe. The Bosnian War, which lasted from 1992 to 1995, finally ended with the Dayton Agreement in 1995. The absence of a provision regarding Kosovo in the Dayton Agreement disappointed the Kosovo government. The armed struggles of Slovenia, Croatia, and Bosnia-Herzegovina to gain independence changed the mindset of the Kosovo government. Realizing that they couldn't achieve independence peacefully, Kosovo Albanians formed the Kosovo Liberation Army in 1996 and began an armed struggle against Serbian security forces. In 1996, UÇK forces led by Adem Yashari bombed many police stations in Serbia, including those in Kosovo, on the pretext of killing Albanian civilians. After Serbian leader Milosevic declared the UÇK a terrorist organization, the number of Serbian security forces in Kosovo began to increase. Additionally, in 1996, 16,000 Serbian refugees from Bosnia and Croatia were forcibly resettled in Kosovo by the Milosevic government. This caused Albanians in Kosovo to support the UÇK even more, and the organization gained more militant members every day. Between 1996 and 1997, UÇK militants carried out 66 attacks and killed 39 Serbian police officers and 10 civilians. In January 1997, the Serbian army launched an operation in a region between Pristina and Mitrovica, killing UÇK leader Zahir Pajazadi and over 100 Albanian militants. From 1997, the Albanian mafia helped UÇK obtain large amounts of weapons, while the Albanian diaspora provided significant financial support to the Liberation Army. Also, the number of militants, which was 900 in 1996, rose to 12,000 by the end of 1997. Between 1997 and 1998, 212 attacks were carried out, mainly in Pristina, Mitrovica, Kamenica, and Glogovac, resulting in the deaths of 54 police officers and soldiers. In January 1998, after UÇK militants killed 4 police officers in Belgrade, Serbian soldiers attacked Pristina. Soldiers entered 3 villages in the Drenica district of Pristina with tanks, killing 12 Albanian civilians in the attack. In response, Kosovo Liberation Army leader Adem Yashari personally carried out an attack and killed a Serbian police officer at a police station in Pristina. The Serbian army retaliated again, entering Yashari's compound in Prekaz on January 22, 1998, and attacking civilians. However, thousands of Kosovars went to Prekaz and clashed with Serbian forces, forcing them to withdraw from the village. On February 15, 4 militants from the UÇK leadership were killed in a Serbian police ambush in Mitrovica. On February 28, 1998, Yugoslav forces raided the homes of Yashari's relatives in Drenica, killing 17 people. The next evening, President Milosevic announced that they were not declaring war on the Kosovo Liberation Organization and that they would not leave any village unturned until they killed Adem Yashari and other organization leaders. On March 5, 1998, 300 Yugoslav soldiers attacked Prekaz where Yashari was hiding. The soldiers surrounded the village in 2 circles to prevent Yashari from escaping. During the raids on the houses, 24 villagers were killed by being shot, and at noon, the soldiers called on Adem Yashari and his brother Hamez Yashari, who were hiding in a house, to surrender. However, about 2 hours passed, Yashari didn't surrender, and 2 Serbian police officers were killed when automatic weapons and sniper rifles were fired at Yugoslav forces. As a result, the house where Yashari was hiding was heavily fired upon by Yugoslav forces. After UÇK forces arrived in the area, the clashes lasted for about 36 hours, and on March 7th, the house where the Yasharis and their close relatives were located was destroyed. After the attack, it was determined that Adem Yashari and his brother Hamez Yashari, along with 62 of their relatives, had been killed. The deaths of Yashari family members caused international outrage against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. Additionally, the Prekaz attack caused the popularity of UÇK among Albanians to rapidly increase, and village militias were formed in many parts of Kosovo. On March 13th, approximately 50,000 people in Kosovo demonstrated against the attacks, and armed Albanians who wanted to avenge Yashari's death began attacking Serbian security forces. By the end of March, the situation had spiraled out of control, and the Kosovo War had begun. Until the end of April, Kosovo forces attempted to inflict losses on Yugoslav forces using hit-and-run tactics, but in May they began to engage in conventional warfare. On May 7th, the Kosovo Liberation Army attacked Lapushnik near Pristina, killing 41 Yugoslav police officers and taking control of the region. Throughout June and July, Kosovo forces continued to capture Ipek, Dečan and Jakovo from Yugoslav soldiers. Another Kosovo forces, after securing Suvareca, advanced towards Pristina, taking Mališovo and Glogovac before reaching the southwest of Pristina. While conflicts were ongoing, Yugoslav President Milosevic accused Albania of training Kosovo fighters, providing them with weapons and money. Around 500 UÇK militants left their bases in northern Albania towards Kosovo at 2 a.m. on July 15th, but were intercepted by the Yugoslav army before reaching their destination in Dečan. A battle broke out between the militants, who were carrying a large quantity of weapons and ammunition, and the Yugoslav army, which lasted for approximately 5 hours. 42 militants were killed, and it was later revealed that 16 of them were from Saudi Arabia and 2 were from Yemen. The surviving militants retreated to Albania, while the Yugoslav army seized more than 10,000 weapons and ammunition. In retaliation for the attack, Albanian militants began planning an assault on the heavily Serbian-populated town of Rahovec. On Friday, July 17th, the city's police station, post office, hospital, and other crowded places were simultaneously attacked. The most intense day of the fighting was July 18th, during which the UÇK kidnapped 85 Serbian civilians, resulting in the deaths of 5 Serbian civilians, 8 UÇK militants, and 2 Yugoslav police officers. Of the 85 kidnapped Serbs, 45 were released on the night of July 22nd, while the bodies of the other 40 were found in 2 mass graves in 2005. Following the attack, Yugoslav planes carried out operations in Rahovec, resulting in the deaths of around 30 Kosovan soldiers and 12 Albanian civilians. As the conflict continued, 40% of Kosovo had fallen under UÇK control, but the Yugoslav army continued to send in troops, tanks and planes, carrying out ethnic cleansing against Albanians without distinguishing between civilians and soldiers. The Kosovo crisis became increasingly complex, and in early 1999, the Serbian attacks against the Albanians intensified. The United States organized a negotiation process in France, attended by diplomats from many countries, including Milosevic. During these talks, Milosevic was asked to withdraw Yugoslav forces from Kosovo, but he refused. In response to Milosevic's hardline stance, NATO unanimously decided to intervene militarily in Kosovo. On the evening of March 23, 1999, NATO Secretary General Javier Solana ordered NATO forces to begin air operations against the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The following day, NATO planes led by the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and the Netherlands began bombing Yugoslavia. During the first month of the NATO bombardment, bridges, ministry buildings, radio, and state television stations were targeted. In the second wave of operations starting in April, a quarter of the Yugoslav Air Force and many tanks and artillery were rendered ineffective. Kosovo's president Ibrahim Rugova went to Belgrade to hold a series of peace talks with Milosevic, but they were unsuccessful. As a result, NATO bombed military targets and many Yugoslav military facilities in Pristina and Belgrade were destroyed. During this operation, NATO planes mistakenly attacked a convoy of Albanian refugees, killing 73 civilians and injuring 33 others. In May, missiles fired from NATO ships stationed in the Adriatic Sea hit many cities controlled by the Yugoslav army. Due to occasional missile strikes on residential areas, dozens of civilians on both sides lost their lives. Kosovo's leader Ibrahim Rugova called for the continuation of air operations until all Yugoslav military targets in Kosovo were destroyed. As the Yugoslav army suffered heavy losses, it began to withdraw some of its troops from Kosovo in mid-May. Milosevic, who had requested military assistance from Russia to counter increasing NATO attacks, realized that he couldn't resist any longer after Russian President Boris Yeltsin refused to provide military aid. Finally, on June 5, 1999, Milosevic announced that he had accepted NATO's peace terms. NATO Secretary General Javier Solana announced at a press conference that they had suspended air operations against Yugoslavia until the negotiations were concluded. Finally, on June 10, 1999, the Kosovo War officially came to an end with an agreement between NATO and Milosevic. On June 12, the Kosovo peacekeeping force, led by NATO and consisting of 30,000 soldiers, began entering Kosovo. The number of civilian deaths caused by NATO bombs during the operation was 528. In terms of statistics for the Kosovo War, approximately 13,000 civilians were either killed or went missing during the conflict, with 9,600 of them being Kosovo Albanians and 3,554 being Serbs. During the war, 863,000 Kosovo Albanians and 200,000 Serbs were displaced. In terms of military losses, the Kosovo forces suffered 2,130 casualties, while the Yugoslav forces suffered 1,250 casualties. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.